Inside the church, Yuan Kongya stood calmly before the crucifix, hands clasped in silent prayer, while the sounds of battle and gunfire outside were clearly audible. The congregation's faces were tense with anxiety, yet Yuan Kongya remained serene, as if the chaos outside was unrelated to her. Shou Qiu sat on a church pew with her medicine cabinet beside her. Though not religious, she silently prayed for Zhang Yi's safety. "Oh God! If you exist, please keep Zhang Yi and his comrades safe," she whispered. A cold voice suddenly interrupted her thoughts. "Only the most devout believers are protected by the gods." Shou Qiu looked up to meet the piercing gaze of Yuan Kongya, whose eyes seemed to draw her in. "Hello," Shou Qiu greeted with a smile, averting her eyes from Yuan Kongya's compelling stare. Yuan Kongya regarded her intently and then spoke. "Are you frustrated that you can't help your man more?" Her question struck a chord, causing Shou Qiu's smile to falter. She raised her head, replying, "Perhaps a little. I'm a doctor, so my place is in the rear. It's impossible for me to join the battle." Yuan Kongya's voice was tempting. "You might have the potential to be a mutant too." This suggestion set Shou Qiu's heart racing. Shou Qiu had longed to become a mutant, a desire that intensified after Yang Mi awakened her powers. Once an independent woman with a good background and a promising career, Shou Qiu was a renowned young doctor in Tianhai City. Now, she felt her presence fading alongside Zhang Yi. Despite Zhang Yi's kindness, she understood that his priorities didn't revolve around personal feelings. If her role were ever replaced, the gap between her and Zhang Yi might widen. She couldn't ignore that Zhang Yi was constantly improving while she remained stagnant. Yuan Kongya's words stirred something within her. However, Zhang Yi had warned her to be cautious of the snow worshippers, so she responded with a cool smile. "Really? It's the first time I've heard that." Yuan Kongya leaned forward, gently touching Shou Qiu's cheek. "Don't underestimate your potential. Sometimes, all you lack is an opportunity. Believe in yourself. You could become a mutant." The possibility made Shou Qiu's heart race. She had once thought becoming a mutant required risking one's life, a gamble she wasn't brave enough to take. However, the appearance of Ice Spirit offered a new path. Yuan Kongya's eyes held an enigmatic charm, evoking a sense of awe and a compulsion to obey. "We need strength now. Your man needs your help too. Shou Qiu, I can make you a mutant. Will you accept?" Shou Qiu's heart pounded. She knew Yuan Kongya could awaken others but also recognized the woman's mysterious nature and the need for caution. After a brief hesitation, Shou Qiu composed herself. "Thank you, but I don't need it," she replied, smiling softly. Yuan Kongya's eyes flickered with disappointment. "It's okay. You can think it over. Come to me if you change your mind. Divine blessing is a rare opportunity, not granted to everyone." With those words, Yuan Kongya resumed her prayers before the idol. Li Jian's family and Su Beibei hiding at the back of the church. As non-combatants and important sect members, they were given protection. Li Kale avoided eye contact with Yuan Kongya, the woman who cut his manhood that causes him such pain. His feelings were a mix of hate and fear, so he kept his blanket wrapped tightly around him. Su Beibei, seated trembling with fear, held his hand in silent support. The sounds of battle intensified, with the eerie cries of the undead echoing in their minds despite covering their ears. All they could do now was pray for victory. On the outskirts of the snow worship sect, the battle quickly escalated into a fierce and chaotic struggle. There were no unnecessary frills, just the raw and brutal confrontation with the zombie horde. With over 200,000 zombies surrounding the snow worship cult camp, they launched relentless attacks from every direction. The human defenders threw everything they had into the fight: artillery fire, traps, supernatural powers, and melee combat. Every tactic was deployed in a desperate attempt to hold the line. There was no room for retreat, their formation was hollow, and they were completely surrounded with no escape. Their only choice was to fight to the death, hoping Bian Zhengwu and his team would complete the beheading operation. The battlefield was a gruesome scene, filled with flying flesh and blood. Zombies were blown to pieces, but even those with only half their bodies left continued to roar and crawl forward. Human soldiers, armed with sophisticated weapons, could each take out hundreds of zombies. However, a moment of carelessness could lead to them being overwhelmed by sheer numbers. Even if the zombies couldn't chew through their protective gear, they could crush them underfoot. And then there were the giant rats, which could break through defenses with ease. Zhang Yi, stationed on a high-rise building, systematically eliminated almost all the bronze-armored corpses. His powerful sniping ability was a terrifying force on the battlefield, and he alone shouldered at least 20% of the coalition force's burden. Without him, the defensive line would have quickly collapsed under the assault of these powerful enemies. 20 minutes slipped by in the chaos, and the coalition forces found themselves retreating while fighting. With each tactical withdrawal, they left behind traps filled with incendiary materials and explosives, wiping out large waves of zombies. But as the defensive circle tightened, the attrition rate climbed to 30%. Gritting his teeth, Xiao Honglian contacted Bian Junwu. "We can barely hold on here. How's it going on your end?" Bian Junwu's voice was cold but resolute. "We're about to find the Corpse King. Hold out a little longer, and we'll have results soon." With this glimmer of hope, the coalition forces persevered. However, unknown to them, Bian Junwu and his team remained above ground, waiting for more zombies to emerge from their underground lair. The border army knew the Corpse King wouldn't let the battle fail, believing more reinforcements would be sent. It was a contest of endurance. Could they outlast the relentless zombie waves? The Corpse King could never suspect a trap laid for it. In the heat of battle, Liang Yu, Uncle Vu, and Su Chengli operated as a formidable special operations team, delivering crucial support wherever it was needed most. Liang Yu brandished the Tang Dao, a legendary sword crafted from adamantine, which allowed her to slice through the undead like a whirlwind. Her movements were a blur of lethal grace, each swing of her blade cutting down dozens of zombies, leaving trails of dismembered bodies in her wake. Uncle Vu, with his unyielding defense, stood as a bulwark against the horde. He relied on his twin Gatling guns, their barrels spinning rapidly as they unleashed a torrent of bullets that tore through the ranks of the undead. The deafening roar of gunfire was a symphony of destruction, and the ground was littered with the remains of the fallen. Meanwhile, Su Chengli's unique abilities shone through in the chaos of combat. His mastery of field control was unmatched, and his signature ability, Fubuki, turned the battlefield into a frozen wasteland. Though his stealth attacks couldn't rival Wei Dinghai's Ice and Snow Lord, Su Chengli's control over the environment was peerless. As the old saying goes, a ruler may be short, but an inch can be long. His power covered the battlefield in ice and snow, slowing the zombies and providing critical openings for his allies to exploit. Despite their small numbers, Zhang Yi's team proved indispensable, repeatedly demonstrating their worth on the battlefield. As the battle raged on, time seemed to warp. Half an hour felt like an eternity. Desperation loomed over them, yet retreat was not an option. Instead, they transformed into death apostles, resolute in their mission to resist the unyielding tide of zombies to the bitter end. In this brutal confrontation, the relentless momentum of the zombies gradually decreases. While the undead continued their advance, the coalition's shrinking circle became increasingly difficult to breach. However, as the battle wore on, the ordinary believers within the church area began to falter. No defensive perimeter was impenetrable, and some rats inevitably slipped through the cracks. Despite the snow worship cult's prior preparations, evacuating believers to high-rise buildings and the subway, the zombies and giant rats, drawn by the scent of the living, managed to infiltrate their sanctuaries. A few rats broke through, sowing chaos among the snow worshippers. Without skilled combatants to defend them, even a small number of zombies could devastate an entire floor of believers. Terrified screams echoed as they rushed to the windows, pleading for rescue from the armed forces outside. However, Xiao Honglian and the others were deaf to their cries for help. They were already stretched to their limits, barely managing to protect themselves. Even leaders like Sheng Yixian could only offer a somber prayer, return to the kingdom of God, before refocusing on the fight at hand. diverting resources to deal with scattered zombies at the rear would compromise the entire defensive line. Zhang Yi noticed a dozen zombies breaching their defenses and hesitated momentarily before taking them out with precise shots. Although he cared little for the fate of the snow worshippers, he couldn't afford to let disturbances at the rear affect frontline operations. Panic among the believers could ripple forward, disrupting the fighters' concentration and coordination. Yet the breaches multiplied as the battle devolved into hand-to-hand combat. "It's been 40 minutes, what's the status over there?" Xiao Honglian and Xing Tian voiced their growing anxiety. They had been tasked with holding the line for half an hour, but the onslaught showed no signs of abating. "The tunnels are full of corpses. Just 10 more minutes, and we'll finish them." Bian Jun's cold assurance offered little comfort, yet they had no choice but to trust in his words. As the battle line contracted, the areas housing ordinary believers were abandoned. This tactical decision had an unintended benefit. The zombies, drawn to the scent of the living, converged on these locations, reducing the pressure on the combat troops. In reality, these believers had been used as bait in Bian Jun's strategy from the outset. Everything was expendable for the mission's success. The screams of the snow worship cult echoed through the chaos as unprotected believers fell victim to the merciless tide of undead and rodents. They became easy prey for the ravenous horde. Just as Zhang Yi allowed himself a brief sigh of relief, believing they could hold out a while longer. Meanwhile, Huahua, his cat companion, suddenly tensed. Her ears twitched, and she bared her sharp fangs, sensing an imminent threat. Zhang Yi tightened his grip on his sniper rifle, scanning the horizon with hawk-like focus. His eyes were keen, capturing every movement, ensuring no enemy could escape his vigilant watch. Yet, despite his sharp awareness, there was one direction he hadn't considered. Suddenly, Huahua let out a sharp meow, and rapidly transformed her body, enlarging to shield Zhang Yi. Startled by her unexpected reaction, Zhang Yi's surprise quickly turned to realization: an enemy was closing in. A gust of wind swept past as Huahua leaped fiercely into the air. Zhang Yi's eyes followed her ascent, widening as he saw a swarm of winged humanoid creatures emerging from the darkness. Their enormous bat-like wings contrasted with their slender bodies, revealing them to be bronze-armored corpses of a new terrifying species. "Another new type, huh? They've been hiding well," Zhang Yi muttered, narrowing his gaze on the airborne threat. Meanwhile, Huahua had already captured one of the creatures, dragging it down to the rooftop with lethal precision. The remaining creatures shifted their focus to Zhang Yi, preparing to attack. With calm determination, Zhang Yi opened a massive dimensional door and aimed his rifle. Two of the creatures, caught off guard by his tactic, stumbled through the portal, while another fell to his swift shot. The rest, realizing their vulnerability, began to circle high above, searching for an opportunity to strike back. These flying corpses, having witnessed the massacre of their kind on the ground, recognized Zhang Yi as a formidable adversary. However, his bodyguards were prepared, thwarting any surprise attacks. The rooftop echoed with the clash between Huahua and the bronze-armored corpse, its roars drowned out by Huahua's ferocious snarls. She cried, shredding her opponent with claws like steel until it was reduced to pieces. As the remaining dozen flying corpses observed their fallen comrade, a flicker of fear crossed their eyes. Zhang Yi noted their speed, making them difficult to target. But he had an ace up his sleeve: his divine power Kamui, lethal at this range, and the extensive defensive reach of his dimensional doors provided him with an escape route if necessary. He felt no fear. Zhang Yi steadied himself, ready to face the airborne threat head-on. He knew the battle was far from over, but with unwavering resolve and the support of his companions, he was determined to stand his ground until the very end. The clash between the living and the undead raged on, a testament to the resilience and courage of those who dared to defy the dark